Good morning, everybody. Good morning to another beautiful day. We dedicate our class today in memory of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who passed away on Shabbos. Yehi Zichrei Baruch, may his memory be a blessing for Klal Yisrael, a man who dedicated his life for the teaching of Torah to the world, and also to the non-Jewish world, chief rabbi of United Kingdom, but who used out his talent to affect not only England, but the entire world. So passed away on Shabbos, Pasha V'Eda, and Shana should continue to be a Melech Yosher, an ambassador of goodness and kindness for Klal Yisrael. Also, a great rabbi passed away this Friday. Friday, Rabbi Feinstein. Also, a great one of the poskim of the generation who answered thousands upon thousands of shilas to the Jewish nation. Also, a great individual. May his memory also be for a blessing for the entire Jewish nation. We're going to continue the learning of Tanya, and we're going to start off with the result that we're holding at the closer to the end of chapter 39 in the in Tanya, and we're going to go into the first chapter of Shema, which is the statement of the Ahavta. Over here is the first chapter of Shema. After we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we say the chapter which is in the Torah. V'yahavta es Hashem Elokecha. We spoke about this. We say I love the Eibishter, I love God, b'chol levavcha, with all my heart. And as we explained over here, the word levavcha, the Gemara says it in a plural. It's levavcha, with all your hearts. And the Gemara, the Talmud says that it means v'shnei yitzarecha, with both of your inclination, whether it's with the Yetzer Tov, with your holy soul, or your Yetzer Hara, with your evil inclination, with your animalistic soul. B'chol nafshecha, with all my soul, u'b'chol me'edecha, with all my might. B'chol nafshecha means that even I'm ready to give up my soul. Mesiras nefesh, self-sacrifice, a yid, like the Akedas Yitzchak, a Jew should be ready to, like Yitzchak, who ready to give away his life. And we should also be ready to give away our lives for the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then the pasuk continues, V'hoyu hadvarim ha'ela, and these words, Asher nechi mitzavcha yoim, these words which I command you today, alavavcha, upon your hearts, these words, shinamtam levanecha, you shall teach them diligently to your children, v'dibarta bam, and you shall speak of them, b'shivtecha b'veisecha, when you sit in your house, u'belechtecha v'aderech, when you go on the way, u'v'shachpecha, and when you lie down, u'v'kumecha, and when you rise up. So we went from love of God from the heart to the mouth. We went from love to the concept of speech. Now, as you mentioned, remember we learned in Tanya, in the beginning of Tanya, that is machshava, dibur, maisa. The three garments of the soul is machshava, thought, which is connected to the emotions, dibur, speech, which is connected to the mouth, maisa is is action. So that's also the beauty, of in general, you can have great teachers, you can have great philosophers, but they need to become lilmaid, as we say, lilmaid, to learn, ulalamed, to teach with your mouth, lishmar, to do. Thought, speech, and action. And that's why the verse continues and says, Ukshaitem la'oisa yadecha, you shall bind them as a sign on your arm, and they're going to be as an ornament between your eyes, which is the mitzvah of tefillin. That's the action, the mitzvah of tefillin, which we put on tefillin, that is symbolic. We put it on our heads, between our eyes, on our heads, which is moyach, the aspect of the mind. We bind it on our hands, which is the concept of the action. The tefillin shoyad, the hand tefillin, is facing our hearts. It needs to face our hearts. That means it's put on the box on our arm, facing our heart, which is the connection of all these concepts, machshava, emotions. We say the Shema, dibur, and it's on our hands, action, connecting all concepts of our lives. The truth is, tefillin is symbolic to moyach shal talalev, the concept of mind over matter, that to be able, as Alter Rebbe is going to explain in Tanya, that ultimately we can have a spiritual relationship with God. And many Jews love to have a spiritual relationship with God. And the question that is asked, why don't we leave it with the spiritual relationship with God? That is actually one of the questions that the Chacham asks in the Seder. He says, why do we need to have laws? Why can't we have love of God? Why can't it be left with love of God? God is spiritual. God is self-understood above any physical reality. You actually says in the second commandment of the Torah, you're not allowed to make any imagery of God. So why don't we leave God and godliness in the spiritual realms of things? Why do we need to bring it down into speech? Why do we need to bring it down into action, really? Why is there a necessity to bring godliness down into the concept of action? Why can't it be left in the aspect of spirituality? Let's leave action for the physical world. Let's leave godliness to the spiritual, which in a human being, the closest concept of the spiritual is the mind, right? The thought to speech is like spiritual to physical. Speech to action is also like spiritual to physical. As you go away from the physicality, you become more spiritual. So really, why don't we leave godliness to the aspect of thought, machshava? Why do we need to put kshaitim le'esei yadecha? And to be able to do kshaitim le'esei yadecha, to be able to bind it on your hand, you need a cow, you need to shech the cow, and you need to have its hide. All these physical matters. And so too, uchsaftem al mezuzahs beisecha v'isharecha, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. So this is the chapter Shema that we say not once a day, we say twice a day, 3 times a day, sometimes 4 times a day. We say this every single day, this chapter Shema, which holds within it all these aspects which surrounds a human being. Every concept, and you can't get away with thought, the way you think, your emotions and your actions and your teaching of your children, the learning of Torah, everything you have in this chapter. That's why it's one of the main important prayers of Yiddishkeit. But a Jew needs to know. That's why we start off the prayer with the Shema. For a Jew needs to comprehend the Shema and to be able to incorporate the Shema into his daily life. So now, let us go back to the chapter of Tanya. Let us go back to the Tanya and let us learn the Tanya. Let's go back to the Tanya. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the place. Tanya. So that's the question. Okay. Let's start over here. Altogether gives a mashal, gives an analogy. He asked the question that by saying the Shema, we are revealing the through the love of the Eibishter, we are connecting to the essence of God. So the Alter Rebbe says, "L'kala v'lasechel." Wait a second. 1 second. 1 second. The wrong chapter. Sorry, I was on the wrong chapter. Okay, we're holding in chapter 49, and I really was looking at the chapter, and it wasn't reading to me. Okay, so now the Rebbe here is talking about the connection that we have, about the connection that we have through the saying of the blessings of the Shema, and saying the Shema ultimately itself. The Alter Rebbe says is, here we have it. And therefore it says in the verse that these words that I say should be alevavcha, should be on your heart. That it needs to affect your heart. V'dibarta bam, and you shall speak in it. And what is the concept of speech? What is the aspect of why do we need to say the words of Torah? Why isn't it enough to have an intellectual concept of Torah? Torah is chachma. The Torah is the concept of chachma. So why would we need speech? So the Alter Rebbe says, he brings down a statement of the Zohar in Eitz Chaim, which is a statement of Zohar, that speech is the concept of kissing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nishikin, mouth to mouth. That through our speech, it's actually brought down it's like we're coming together mouth to mouth. And that's as explained in Eitz Chaim, that the union is a kissing, which incorporates the union of attachment of spirit to spirit, is an essential union, Chabad with Chabad, the union of man's Chochmah, Bina, and Dat with God, that is, concentration of Torah, unites with the Chabad of the intellect of above, while the mouth is the outlet of breath as it emerges into a revealed state, represents the category of speech engaged in the words of Torah. So we have the concept of a kiss, Lamaila, is the aspect of Torah. That's the concept of a kiss. The aspect of a deep kiss, which is the breath connecting to the breath of two entities. That is the concept of the action of the ruach, the spirit of the Torah, and that is even in a way deeper. That connection, that's the speech, is even a deeper connection. When I say something is speech, I have a deeper connection. There's a beautiful story. We just celebrated Chav Cheshvan, the Yom Haledes of the Rebbe Rashab. So there's a beautiful story that's told about the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe. That one time, the Rebbe Rashab was in his room, and in the room was the Vegele, was the carriage of the Frierdiker Rebbe, his son, his only son, the little baby sitting laying in the carriage, sleeping in the carriage. And the chassid came into the room and turned to the Rebbe Rashab and said, how beautiful this child looks. And the Rebbe Rashab said he had a so to say, a desire to go over, after hearing this chassid say, express, and looking at the child, he wanted to give him a kiss. So he decided, instead of giving a kiss, he would write a maimer. He wrote a discourse. And he sat down and he wrote a maimer, a discourse, a Kabbalistic discourse. And he put it away, this maimer, and he gave it to the Frierdiker Rebbe on his birthday, 13th birthday. He gave him this maimer as a gift. And he told him, this maimer, this discourse, which I wrote when you were a child, sleeping in the room, this maimer is a Chassidic shekush. This maimer, this discourse, is a Chassidic kiss. It's a Chassidic kiss. I kissed you with a maimer. I kissed you by coming up with a deep concept in Torah and writing it down. And now you can learn this maimer. And when you learn this discourse, we're going to have a spiritual connection, because you're going to learn. You're going to say with your mouth what I said with my mouth, and we're going to have a Chassidic shekush. So too, Kabbalah says that when we say the words of Torah, you shouldn't think by just saying the words of Torah you're not doing something. But actually, when you're saying the words of Torah, the Eibishter is saying the words of Torah with you. This is actually what's right before the Ten Commandments. It says, these are the words that God said, lamer, to say. And there's many commentaries on that verse. These are the words that God commanded the Jewish people to say. And there's many interpretations to what means lamer, to say what. Because then he says the Ten Commandments. So the Rashi says that one of the interpretations of the Gemara, that when a Jew says the words of Torah, God says lamer, he's saying the words of Torah. So not only when I learned Torah, and each and every one of us learns Torah, we connect our wisdom with the wisdom of God, which is the greatest connection, but we actually have the capability to bring it down lower. We have the capability to bring it down bepeh, to bring it down through speech. Because ultimately the power of speech changes the world. We all know it says, "Ba'asara my maras nivra," the Eibishter created words through speech. Why is it important to tell us that God created it through speech? So Chassidus tells us that the reason why it's important to tell us how God created the world, because what do you mean in God's speech? God is above speech. So why would the verse say, "Vayomer Hashem yireh," and God said, "Let there be light"? It says, and God wanted light. You could use many words. God didn't have to say, "Let there be light." Why did the verse need to say that God said these things? Because it's important to us that just like God created the world through speech, we create the world through speech. The power of speech is not something simple that we should take. When we speak, especially the words of Torah, if God is speaking, and as it's brought down in Chassidus, it changes the Avida D'Alma, that it changes the atmosphere in the world. Through us talking words of Torah, we change the atmosphere in the world. And therefore the Gemara says that speech is an action. In halacha, speech is an action. That's why it says also in the Torah that you should keep the words that you say out of your mouth. That every word you say, you should keep it as holy. Don't profane your words. A person should not profane his words. Because if we profane our words, that means we say that words that we say are irrelevant. They're not important. And the Torah tells us every word we say affects the world. That's why there's a statement in Pirkei Avos, maybe we should really try to be silent most of the time, because most of the time we might be saying foolish words. And it's affecting foolish things in the world. And it's having ripple effects, our words in the world. So the best thing is, if you have no godly words to say, if you have no spiritual words to express, if I don't have any spiritual, I shouldn't say it. Because I should only use my words. Lashon Kodesh. That's why it's called Lashon Kodesh. It's a holy words. It's holy words. It's a holy. It brings holiness to the word. That's why it's important that we always speak Divrei Torah. Famous statement, I think, of the Frierdiker Rebbe, who said that when you walk in the street, every Jew should have a Mishnah Baal Peh. Every Jew should have a Mishnah, which means one of the words of Mishnayot, which is written by Rabbi Yehuda Nassi, the oral law. We should have Baal Peh, or some words of Tanya Baal Peh, so that when walking in the street, we should say it. So that the earth will not say, why are you walking upon me? Who gave you the right to walk upon me? The only reason why you have the right to walk upon me is only because you're saying words of Torah, which then gives you the right to walk upon me. But if you're not saying the words of Torah, so why are you walking upon me? Maybe I should walk upon you. So this is the important concept of speech. It's a very important aspect of the Alter Rebbe in Spain, the concept of speech. It says, the Gemara says that you should not forget your learning, because it's something usually we forget. We don't forget things that are important to us. Things that affected us, we don't forget. Things that are not important to us, we forget. So we forget what we learned yesterday. We may forget what we learned 10 minutes ago. Why? Because it's not that important to us. So how do we make it important to us? The Gemara wanted to ask the question, how do you make something important to you? You need to say it 100 times, the Gemara says. You need to repeat it 100 times. The Gemara says if you don't repeat something in learning 100 times, you haven't learned. It's not considered learning. That means if you said something 90 times, you haven't learned yet. You got to get back. You need to repeat it. When a person repeats something over and over and over, we see that in negative. This is a statement, I think, in negative. You repeat a lie many times, people believe it. That's a negative, because speech has an effect. Whether you like it or not, you say something over and over and over again, it ultimately has an effect. If we could say such a thing in a negative way, we could surely say it in a positive way. That if we say something over and over and over again, and it's true, and it's positive, and it's godly, you're ultimately going to believe it. It's ultimately going to affect you. My friends, we're davening every day, the same davening, same words. We said it yesterday, we said it the day before, we said it the day before. We're repeating it over and over again. And we're hoping that one word, 2 words, 1 paragraph will ultimately impress upon ourselves. That it's going to be imprinted upon our souls, upon our hearts, and upon our minds. We need to engrave it upon ourselves. In that verse, it says, Vishinantam levanecha. You have to engrave it in your child. That it becomes part of his language. In general, you need to teach your children, your grandchildren, or yourself how to speak, how not to speak, what to say, how to say it. You might want to say something in a certain way. I need to educate myself that the chas v'shalom, I should not say something in a negative way. And the only way to do that is to train myself to say positive. I'm not a tzaddik, so I might have a natural instinct to say something negative. I simply need to train myself that my mouth will not talk negative, that my mouth will talk positive. And it's a process. It's not something that can happen in a very quick way. It's a process. It's a learning process to be able to transform the mind. The truth is, my friends, nobody knows what another person is only through his mouth. Through his mouth. through the way he expresses himself, not only what he says, but the way he or she expresses themselves, you know what she is or what he is. That's the way the Eibishter created the world. If you want to have an influence on somebody else, you need to be able to communicate. And you need to be able to communicate right. That's why there's an expression that says, it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Dvarim hayotzim min halev, nichnasim el halev. Heart to heart needs to go through Dvarim, needs to go through speech. Heart to heart, that we can have a heart-to-heart connection, that we can have a heart-to-heart relationship, needs to go through Dvarim hayotzim el halev, needs to go through speech. The whole davening, the whole prayer that begins from Baruch Shamar or Hoidu until we get to the Shema, which is close to whatever, 40, 50 pages, is all there to come to the Shema. So I'm praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm acknowledging God. I'm thanking God. I'm talking about the greatness of God. I'm talking about the love of God. Why am I doing all this? I'm saying these things so that you impress upon me. I'm not just saying these things because, I got to say it. I'm saying it hopefully because I comprehend it. And I understand all these praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now I can have the love of God because it's an impression upon me. Hopefully it impressed me to say these things. So that is in general importance. The concept of peh, the aspect of mouth. You need to pray with your mouth. You need to learn with your mouth. You shouldn't just sit there and have those deep thoughts of prayer only. And you shouldn't just sit there and have deep philosophical mind contemplations and meditations only. You need to talk divrei Torah. You need to say it. Say it to yourself. Daven to yourself, self-understood. So by davening, you're praying that only you have to hear it. Nobody else has to hear your prayer. Learn to yourself. Learn with a partner. So let's go back to the Tanya. The Alter Rebbe wants to impress upon us the importance of this concept of the peh, of the aspect of the peh. And while the mouth is the outlet of breath, and it emerges in a revealed state, represents the category of speech engaged in the word of Torah. And as the verse says, for every word that proceeds from God's mouth does man live. Man lives through the words of God. Through words, we live. That's the expression. The man doesn't live but on bread alone, but he lives on the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Eibishter gave you speech. That's the nourishment to your neshama. That gives your soul capability to live. He has to eat also. So you eat bread for your body, and you say words of Torah for your soul. That's the bread. The Torah is called mayim and lechem. The Torah is called the bread and the water of the soul. Because that's the way the soul gets its physical nourishment. And ultimately its spiritual nourishment. Because ultimately the soul is stuck in my body, and the soul needs my peh, my mouth, not only my brain and my heart. The soul needs my mouth to also express itself in the words of godness. However, one does not fulfill one's obligation by meditation and deliberation alone. Unless one expresses the words with his lips in order to draw down the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof towards even the vivifying soul which dwells in the blood of man. So when I talk with my mouth, I'm using the koyach, I'm using the strength of my body to say the words of God. If my body had no strength, I wouldn't be able to talk. So that I talk, that's why you see in Shiva, I'm actually screaming right now. I don't know why, I'm talking to a computer. But it's like a natural thing. You got to get emotional. You got to make Yiddishkeit emotional. You got to make the Torah emotional. And it needs to express it to you that you're emotional. You cannot be a cold being that the Torah does not become emotional. That means it hasn't yet affected your heart. You have no emotions to the Torah. And every person has emotions. And therefore you express yourself. Sometimes you express yourself loudly. Because you get emotional. That's the beauty. Now it means that the Torah not only makes sense to me intellectually, the Torah also makes me excited. Oh, my excitement is contagious. No, you should sit and learn, and that should be your excitement. Learn, get a little excited in the learning that you're doing. You should feel excited. You should be happy that you're learning something. That shows that the intellect not only affected your mouth, it affected your body, it affected your emotion. You're actually enjoying the learning. You're enjoying the prayer. That brings about the concept that the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce us now to a concept in Kabbalah, which is going to go more deeper in the next chapter, chapter 50, but he's going to introduce us to us now in the aspect of Ratzoi and Shuv. And let's get to it. The Alter Rebbe is going to, in the aspect of the Ratzoi, to go forward, where the soul wants to connect to God, Shuv, where it needs to come back into a physical reality. And that is the struggle. You see, we want to have a Ratzoi. Naturally, we have a Ratzoi, a desire, and a will. Of course, we have a godly soul that wants to connect to godliness. We enjoy it. We enjoy it. Humans enjoy godliness. It's inspiring. It's something, it's like the unknown. It's something that is out there. It's something that inspires us. It's a very great subject. Kabbalah. You say the word Kabbalah and everybody turns their ears. You tell them, you say the word halacha, everybody looks away. You say Kabbalah, won't go, everybody's ready. We're ready to listen to the Kabbalistic concepts. We're all in the Ratzoi mode. We love spirituality. Humans love it, especially Yidden. Jews love spirituality because that's the neshama. The neshama loves spirituality. It has a Ratzoi. It's like we learned in Tanya that you have the candle flickers, always wants to go above. The neshama is compared to a candle. It always wants to connect to something greater. That's the natural instinct of the soul. But then you have to have a shuv. There has to be where the soul comes down to the body. We need to have the return. We need a return. We need a return policy. We need to come back. We need to be able to come back. There's a very famous story which the Alter Rebbe is going to bring down. We all know the story about the four great tzaddikim who went into the spiritual realms of knowledge, and three of them didn't come out so great. Rabbi Akiva, nichnas b'shalom, v'yotza b'shalom. Rabbi Akiva went in peace and went out in peace. The Alter Rebbe is going to explain what means that he went in peace and went out in peace. In essence, Rabbi Akiva went for the Ratzoi, for the desire, for the cleaving, was for the Shuv. It was for the concept to come back. If a person doesn't have the wanting to come back to a physical reality, and he wants to just fly high, and he wants to just go higher, but not that the higher is to come back and make the lower higher, you might go too high. That was one of the sins of the two sons of Aaron. The Karavasam Elakim, they came too close to God, so to say. They wanted to have a spiritual connection, and they totally lost the desire in the physical. And that's not why God created the will, that we would lose our desire in the physical. We actually should have the desire in elevating the physical, to making the physical a more receptacle for the spiritual. So the more we say Torah words, the more we say, we understand Torah words in our mind, the more we have all these concepts that we use the physical for the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more we accomplish the Ratzoi and the Shul. The more we accomplish the going out to the spiritual, but to return to the physical, because that was the whole purpose. We're not interested in getting excited in a spiritual thing that's not going to change our purpose and why we're getting excited. So that's what he says, unless one expresses the words in his lips in order to draw the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof downwards, even into the verifying soul which dwells in the blood of man, which in turn is produced by the intake of the blood of the food from the minerals, vegetables in the animal world. How do I have this strength? Because I ate. So because I've eaten the physical world, I've eaten food, whether it's vegetation, whether it's animals, kosher animals, and I've eaten them, and through that I have now koyach to be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I can speak. I can speak with excitement because I have strength. One thereby elevates them all, the verifying soul and the minerals, the vegetables, and the animal world. So this, we all know that the Kabbalah says that the Eibishter created the world in 4 levels. Doimein, the inanimate. Even in the food world, we have doimein like water. Water is a doimein. Water. Doimein, tsemeach, vegetation. Chai, animals, fish, birds, cows. Medaber, humans. And everything, hakomena offer, ultimately everything comes from the earth. The water also comes through the earth. Everything comes from the earth, but ultimately there's these 4 levels. And everything, I don't want to express it like they express in the world, the food chain. That sounds a little bit not right. This is a spiritual food chain. The elevation food chain. The elevation chain. Ultimately, everything needs water, even vegetation. Vegetation elevates water in the earth, and ultimately the animals and humans need vegetation, and ultimately humans need animals, vegetation, and water. Everything is elevated by its higher level. So ultimately humans elevate everything. Elevate the water, the inanimate things, the vegetation, and the animals, and humans elevate them all. And that's why you should eat chicken as an animal. If you don't eat it, you shouldn't eat it for health reasons, but not for spiritual reasons, because the Eibusha says, in essence, the chicken you're going to eat, and you're going to make a bracha on it, you're going to elevate that chicken. Unless you have health issues, and you're not going to eat chicken for that reason. But in general, we need to elevate the world. The Eibusha gave us the capability to elevate the world. And if I could elevate all the aspects of the world, I need to elevate this world. It's a very famous mashal. I forgot who said the mashal. It's a mashal about the kernel and the beer. I'm sure you heard it in Vayasa, in Chabadas. But it's a beautiful mashal about the neshama that one of the brought down the Arizal that sometimes the neshama is punished. In Shamayim, it's put into a vegetable. God forbid. That the neshama comes into it needs to go through some aspect of rectification, and it's put into something that's a great pain to the soul. So the soul of a human being should go into a kernel. That's the story, to a kernel of wheat, and into a kernel of wheat. It should go into this kernel. It's self-understood a very painful thing for the soul. So the soul, the story, the mashal is given that the soul is put into the kernel. And it's worried, self-understood. It's worried as it goes into this kernel, a barley kernel. That's the analogy. And he's worried. What's going to happen with him? Is he going to survive the elements, and will he survive? And thank God he survived the whole growing process. And now the big machine comes, the farmer comes, and he cuts off all these kernels. And now the soul that's in a little kernel is worried, where is he going to go? Is he going to get lost and fall on the ground and get crushed? What is going to happen? He comes into a silo of billions of kernels. And now the soul is worried. What is going to happen with it? Where is it going to go? Who's going to, where's this going to go? And ultimately, he's sent to a brewing factory where they make beer. And now he's in a hot, he's in a hot beer machine, whatever, vessel. And now he doesn't know where is he going to go. He's going to be in a bottle of beer. He's going to be in a keg of beer. Where is he going to go? And he comes into a keg of beer. And now he doesn't know where is he going to go. Is he going to go to which tavern he's going to go to? He lands up in a tavern. And now, who's going to drink the bottle of beer? Who's going to drink the cup of beer? Will it be a Jew? Non-Jew. And a Jew comes to the beer, orders a beer. The soul's in the cup. Now the soul is worried. Will the Jew make the bracha? Will he make a bracha and elevate him? Or will he not make the bracha? He'll have to go through the process again. That's what's important. I'm not trying to give you a guilt complex to make a bracha. But you never know. You elevate the drink. You elevate the beer. You elevate the soda. You elevate the water. Every time you make a bracha, you never know what you're doing. I never know what you never know. You never know what you're accomplishing, because those are things that are hidden from us. Exactly what in Kabbalah is called the tzutzis hakadusha, the sparks of godliness that are in the food and in the vegetation and in the animal that is in front of you to be eaten. This thing needs to be elevated. Besides that, it needs to become part of you to be able to give you nourishment. There's a spark of godliness in that food. And that bracha, the blessing that I make, elevates that spark of godliness. Just like the body, right? When we eat food, there's the wondrous of the body. The body takes that food, it separates it. It takes certain things out, it puts certain things here, it sends out certain things. The body is an unbelievable mechanism to be able to take that food and to work with it and to take out what it needs, the nourishment and the blood and this and that. I am not a doctor, but it has that capability. So too, we have the capability by that making that bracha, by making that blessing. That's why it's important to know the brachas of the birchas hanenim, the brachas of a food, to know exactly which bracha to make. Because when I make a bracha on food, even on water, there's a nitzvah alaki, there's a spark of God, because God said, let there be water. There's a spark of God in that water that's waiting to be elevated, and I have now elevated that water. So, let's go back to the Tanya. Let's try to finish the chapter. Right? So on this, thereby elevates them all, verifying soul, the minerals, the vegetables, the animal soul to God, together with the entire universe. And it causes them to be absorbed in his blessed unity and light, which will illuminate the world and its inhabitants in a revealed manner. In the spirit of the verse that says, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, so much so, indeed, that all flesh shall see it. And that's the ultimate revelation of Mashiach. That ultimately, whatever you're doing now, whatever I'm doing now, that I don't see this revelation of godliness. I don't see when I make the bracha, I don't see anything, I don't see the bit or the rectification and separation of the spirit of the spark of God within the food. I don't see it. But there's going to come a time that through ultimately the rectification of the world, we're going to be able to actually see what that bracha, what that blessing had an effect on the world. For this is the purpose. Now this is important. This is the whole point. For this is the purpose of the progressive descent of all worlds, that the glory of God may be preserved this physical world, especially in a revealed manner, to change the darkness of clippers into the light of holiness. Listen to the words. And to bitterness of the world whose life force is from Klippat Noga, the husk that shines into the sweetness of goodness and holiness. It's been explained in chapter 36 at length, if you remember. The whole point is Dire Betachtoinim. The Eibishter is sweet. The words of Torah are sweet. The ways of the Torah are so sweet and so pleasant. All its pathways are peace. And the Alter Rebbe says this is the essence and the intent of man's service. This is where it is. That previous paragraph should be a paragraph that everybody should know. So when you have a question, somebody asks you, you ask yourself, what am I doing here? That's what you're doing here, my friend. That's what I'm doing here. I'm doing here to reveal God in this world. Take the bitterness of the world, turn it into sweet. Take the darkness of the world and bring some light into the world. That's what I am doing here. And this is the essence of the intent of man's service, to draw the infinite light of blessed life down below. We're not here, and also you have to realize, the Alter Rebbe says, we're not here to reveal godliness of the world. We're here to reveal Ein Sof, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the way God is above nature, the essence of God, the way God transcends nature in nature. That takes avodah. And that's why Dr. Rebbe says, that takes service. That's a tzarot lias halos man. However, the initiative must come through the elevation of man. And man is the acronym, as he writes over here, of Mayim Nukvim, female waters, which Kabbalah terminology assigns for the arousal of the elevation of the female, meaning the recipient. We are the recipient. We are the feminine in the whole concept. The Torah and God is the masculine. We are the vessel. We are the feminine. And the whole Torah was created that the feminine, that we will become higher, would be elevate itself. And if we understand that, everybody would surrender his one soul and his all that he has for that. If you understand, if I understand that that's the whole purpose, then nothing else is important. If this is my purpose, nothing else is important. Nothing. And I would be Meiser Nefesh. So now I would have self-sacrifice for this concept. That's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is that I don't think it's my purpose, and that's why I get involved in other things in the world. And I lose, in essence, my purpose in the world. I think we have finished chapter 39. We have today finished chapter 39. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, we come to a completion of the chapter. The Alter Rebbe says, the whole upper worlds, that's the beginning of the Birchas of Shema. The whole upper worlds, all the Fanim, the Chayes, HaKodesh, all the great angels, and all the many myriads of heavens, etc., they all say, where is the place of godliness? Where can we find the essence of God? And the answer is, the Eibishter fills the world. The Eibishter comes down, is found in this world, in this physical, pashut, the physical world. And this physical world is the manifestation of godliness in the world. And that shows the great love the Eibishter has for each and every single one of us. And the Eibishter has this love because God knows. That's what you said. I just said in the morning. I thank you, God, that you return my soul to me. How great is your faith in me? You have such love to me and such faith in me that you are hoping that today I'm going to do the purpose of my creation. I'm going to go out there and change the world, the dark world, into light. I'm going to daven with my mouth, not only with my thought. I'm going to daven with my heart. I'm going to daven with my mouth. I'm going to learn Torah, not only with my thought, to understand the words of Torah, and not only with my mouth to say the words of Torah, but actually I'm going to act out the words of Torah. I'm going to follow the words of Torah. Because I realize that everything else is secondary to this purpose of why I'm here in the world. And the beauty of this is, it's not a 24/7 job per se to most of us. It could be a 1-minute job. You need to do one mitzvah today. You need to learn some moments of Torah today. You need to do some prayer today. And you accomplished it today. So today we need to all do machshava in thought, dibur in speech, maaseh in action, to do the tachlis, the purpose of why God brought me down in the world in general, and it brought me down in the world today. And if I do that tachlis hakavana, self-understood, that purpose, I connect to the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I connect to the whole purpose of why God created the world. And that is the ultimate concept of why the Eibishter created the world, to lidira b'tartainim, that there'll be a revelation of God in the world, in the physical world, in the most mundane parts of the world, through my mouth and through my speech and through my eating and through my sleeping and through my whatever I do in a physical world. I have accomplished the whole purpose of creation. And so we have ended chapter 49 of Tanya. And in Mirchem next week, Sunday morning, we're going to start chapter 50 of Tanya. We're coming to the last stretch of the last 3 chapters of Tanya, 50, 51, and 52. 50, 51, 52, 53. You have 4. 50, you have another 4 chapters of Tanya. And then we have finished Baruch Hashem, the Tanya. It's going to be a great celebration that we have learned together the entire time. I wish you a wonderful day. I hope that you are coming also learning the Chitas that we started last week. Baruch Hashem, we'll continue to learn Chitas, which is Chumash, Tilim, and Tanya. And the Eibishter will protect us and watch over us, and will bring us the ultimate revelation, the coming of Mashiach, the Meida.
Amen.
Amen.
When is Chitas learning, Rabbi?
Every day, 8 a.m.
Oh,
Every
8
day,
a.m.
8 a.m. We learn Chumash and Tanya, and then
8 a.m.
we do, and then you have to do Tilim by yourself. Psalms you got to do by yourself. But every day you can come and learn Chumash and Tanya. It depends. Some days today took us 25 minutes. It takes between 20 and 40 minutes. It depends the length of the Chitas.
Okay.
So, have a wonderful and beautiful day, a happy day. Stay dry, and have a great day, guys.
And Rabbi,
Yes.
are we going to have a big party after we learn